then thank you so much, Neelam, for the wonderful context setting. And it's a pleasure to be back again because ConnectFor, we have been, sort of collaborating with you people for a long time. And it's a wonderful initiative because often, I have been in the sector for quite some time. And one of the critiques is, wonderful organizations doing wonderful work, but we hardly share any common platform to exchange our learning or even discuss our, fears or failures and learn from each other. So when organizations like these bring us together, it's a wonderful melting pot of ideas and possibilities, right? So thank you so much again. And wonderful to be, having so many of you here. And as Neelam was insisting, and I also keep insisting whenever I come in sessions, that please keep your videos on if you can. Nothing like it because anyway we are like connecting virtually. So anyway, there's a sense of distance. It just sort of makes it slightly warmer screen to see all these beautiful smiling faces and to realize that you are all joining from different cities and uh, wonderful to find that, and we'll be very happy to know where are you from. So in case on chat you are writing about your organization or cities you're representing, that will be great. Yes, I think there was a lengthy introduction, which I pretty much, feel slightly uncomfortable. But yes, I have been with Cry for long. And volunteering is sort of a passion for me after so many. I have been working for over 2 decades now. Um, so it's part of like, eating, breathing, and sleeping something. So even if you have your moments of saying that, oh, too much or too little or not really the right thing, but then you just be at it. Um, and I don't know how much of value addition I will do through this, little session, but it can be a good start. One little thing I would want to set off is there's no formula to social change. I recall when I first stepped into this sector uh, around the time of, as I said, nearly 20 years back. Um, I was so, confident about that. Oh, I have learned this, I have studied this. So then there's a ready ground to try it out. But very soon enough, and thankfully so, I realized that when you work with people and on social issues, there's hardly much that you can find in the books. And there's hardly anything which is very prescribed way of doing it the right way. But till you start interacting with the stakeholders you work with, till the time you understand what your organization stands for and or the organization you are beginning, and then you sort of discover that what perhaps is the right way to go about, and also keep failing and also learning and mostly unlearning. For me, it was a huge journey of initial phase of unlearning so many things we are conditioned to believe that is the right way. When you grow up in a bigger city, when you come from a sense of or a background of privilege, you start believing that certain things are given or that's the way things work. But uh, often it doesn't. I'm sure you all are full of your own experiences. I would love to learn from each one of you as we go ahead. Before I take a tiny presentation, and I would actually want a lot of questions and your thoughts and suggestions. Neelam, may I request that I did two? I was very curious, so I had a couple of questions, but I realized time is short. So there are two things I would just want to put up as questions and want to hear what you think about it. So Neelam, can you please help with the two questions?
Sure, Anupama. I just request you will three questions, but you need to answer only first two questions right now.
Right. The third one, please ignore and we call it off and we take it later.
Yes. So let me share it. Okay. So I've launched a poll. You can just answer first two questions right now. The poll will be closed in like
And give
60
your
seconds.
honest answers. There's no, actually there is no that this is the correct answer. So feel free. Please, all of us, let's take this poll and only first two questions, please, if it's all right. And Neelam, you can show us the results unless we all are able to see it already.
Correct. So I guess 15 people have marked. Please
Okay, okay. So please go ahead. I see 50 of you who have joined in, which is great.
Great.
So all your individual opinion and voices or even experiences will really value.
50% have participated. So let me know if you need more time. Yes, Babul, you can answer question number 1 and 2 right now. If you scroll down, you will see question number 2 also. Question number 3 we will take at the end. So yeah,
I think a lot of you
great.
have already done it. And in case of you who are hesitating, thinking, do not think much. It's just like, what do you feel? What's your
Yeah,
initial, you know, feeling or instinct of what it is for you or your organization? So I see for the first one, it's pretty close for two, three things. But I see a lot of people who are saying that why do you need volunteers is that you feel there's something for you to offer to, people. It might be you're working with young people or different stakeholders. Also coming quite closely behind are that you feel that, as a society, we can turn more responsible by engaging them, or that you are a small organization and you think there's a lot of work where people can join and help. So these are very, very valid. Great to see that none of you are saying not sure if we need them, because I always wonder that I'm presuming that everyone needs volunteers, but maybe the session already tells you that if you have joined in means that you are quite curious or you already work with it. So that's great. Uh, yes, one or two of you are also saying quite. And then why do people not volunteer? I think again, many of you are saying it doesn't provide monetary value, so usually people hesitate or they are busy, they do not have much of options. So great. So Neelam, can we then stop it here? We can keep this poll saved, and so that we can come back to it. And
definitely. All yours. Yeah.
so, oh, could you people see the results, or is it like uh, you can see it, right? So this is how you people have voted. Thanks so much for taking it. Okay, great. Okay, thanks so much. And this really sets the tone because, if we have joined here and we are thinking of discussing something around a bit of strategies and, how to go about with certain very, basics and fundamentals. Let me share my screen. Please do let me know once you're able to see it. In case there are technical snags and in case you have questions running right in your head while I'm taking you through, please put it on chat or keep a note and I would love to come back to it. Okay, so before I get started, I just wanted to give a quick context setting of what CRI stands for because that's the organization I have been working for long, and I just want you to know what our main approach and vision is. So our vision is we are a child rights organization, and we believe our vision is a happy, healthy, and creative child, right, whose rights are protected and honored in a society. So upholding, things like respect for dignity, justice, and equity. So our work is very much about, overall dignity and rights of children. And our mission is that, how do you make sure that these children grow up to be happy, healthy, and creative? Right. And certain things is that, which we emphasize in our mission, drawing from our vision, is that we have to take responsibility of whatever is happening. We have to see how we mobilize the potential of people and organizations around because nothing can be done alone or rarely can be done alone. And in the process, inspire collective action because, again, the power of coming together and doing things and making it possible in terms of a visible impact or outcome is always stand out when people come together. So that's what we have believed in. And in the process, we are here since 1979. So we have completed 45 years of work. We work across India. Currently, we are in 19 states through our partners and volunteers and supporters. And in the process, if we look back at the number of children we possibly reached through our work, it is around 7 million children we have been working with. We have impacted. And when I say or talk about these numbers, please take note that we never say that we could have done it alone, because it's always the people who had joined us. In some opportune time, I may, love to tell you about, how we began, because many of you might be relatively newer, but that how a little seed of, having a concrete vision leads you to something much, much bigger, and how you see people join. Quickly, volunteer engagement is a department dedicated for engaging volunteers and interns in CRI. I am the national lead of the function, and we have a small team spread out across India. And our sole objective, as part of the larger vision and mission of the organization, is to inculcate and encourage people to volunteer in it. Right. So while we say that what we actually ask them to do, there are varied sort of things we ask. These are quick nutshell of certain programs we are known for. Like if there's something in college, there's something for the college goers. If you really are interested to do something on ground, then there's a thing called community volunteering. Then a lot of people who are interested in virtual spaces and how I can be a digital or a virtual volunteer. So we have things for them as well. There are a lot of youngsters nowadays who are under 18 in school, and we often find there's a huge amount of scope to work in schools or work with such young people. So there are certain things we do with schoolgoers. And internships, again, is a sort of a subset of the larger program on volunteering, but it is slightly different, and I will tell you how in the coming. One of our very
I guess some technical.
volunteering programs number is only one thing. There's far many more things to be feel, to feel that you are making a difference. So it's just not always certain numbers you show off proudly, but what exactly these volunteers and interns do for the change you are endeavoring. So quickly, what do we mean when we say volunteerism, and we would want to encourage that? And then, of course, how do you connect it to your own organization's objective? Is there a certain premise of where it has come? So the first thing is that uh, somewhere people, they through which they champion it. Seen it in the initial years that when we talk of volunteering, we say volunteers gives. It says a lot about giving. But if you really have experienced it, it's what I have seen in so many years is it is a lot about empowerment. And when we talk of empowerment and benefit, it is just not the organization and the cause getting benefited by the volunteer. There are huge amount of benefit and empowerment which happens even at the volunteer level. So that's another big thing. Let's remember that it's very mutually fulfilling. There's a very interesting annual assessment CRI takes up every year just to map impact of volunteering on volunteers. So anytime you're curious, just write to us and we will be so happy to share that, what it tells us and why do we. The third part is inherently, CRI, when we began, we always said you cannot be cynical about how the society is or how people might be too self-centered or not bothered enough, because at the core, very intrinsically, people do care and they would always have that desire to, be for someone's help and try to make, that they matter for others, right? So there is that core thing inside their art. The only thing is how do you spark it off and make it, spark off into something which really shows and which really adds up to what we are aiming. Quickly, before where we are and what we need to do and how to go about doing it, it's always good to see that where we began, right? Because then you can map that where we are headed and why. Right. So quick in a gist, I just wanted to present that how the history of volunteering has evolved across in the globe and in India. So very initially, like, you will, if you just, sort of go back digging into your past and see that where are the volunteers and what they had been doing. The spirit of volunteerism, you will find wonderful examples from even the 18th century, right? That's where there are earliest evidences and examples from there. To having come to the 20th century, where you will find a lot of organizations who started talking about and engaging and designing programs and initiatives and campaigns to engage people for a larger social cause. And the current modes and designs and formats you see of organizations with their volunteering programs or volunteers engaging is hugely, is the way we are so used to seeing it in the 20th century. And that's what the current reflections are. Traditionally in India, you all may have, so many examples starting from your home to the people you know, who have always, this thing of Dan, right? Seva. These words have been very common in India where that help the needy, help the people who are suffering. So it may have been that, handful of rice you keep aside and you had given during famines and, in wars where, regular citizens were trying to do certain things for the soldiers, or especially during the nation building phase where fresh out of independence, India really wanted to build a country. And there were a lot of, do-gooders who came forward and said, let's, contribute to currently that it is intrinsically a lot about altruism. When you talk of volunteering, it is essentially a lot to do with that how we all are connected. Maybe there are these different lenses and segments of people who are part of the society. Someone slightly privileged, someone not, someone getting it all, someone not. But then that uh, feeling that we are not isolated. We are part of that larger microcosm, and we need to play our own part. And of course, finally, that in India, it's a very young country. Over 65% of our population are like, 35 years and below. So there's a huge amount of potential of engaging. And I'm not saying just with young people because volunteering crisscrosses across ages. We have volunteers who are senior citizens who come in and do a lot of beautiful work with us. And so must be, many of you who must be working. But I'm generally saying that when we say volunteering is a lot about energy and enthusiasm and youngsters joining in, India, of course, sets the ground. Having said that, a quick thing about India is when we compare it to other countries where there is a very prominent practice and evidences of volunteering, um, our potential or our reach is just about one tenth of what the developed nations do and how they engage people to volunteer. Right. So, which means there's a huge untapped potential of how do we engage volunteers and how do they really, stay connected. But as I was asking a question, that what are the things where, uh, if you ask young people that, what are the things which keeps you away from, volunteering, or you don't do it, or you don't discover it? First is lack of information and guidance, which comes out very, very problem, right? That I do not have adequate information about what I can do and where and how, right? And who is there for me to, guide? Is it my faculty in my college? Is it someone in my family? Is it my friend circle who tells me that, hey, there's something out there and chalo karte hain. The second is that sometimes even we experience, right, that they come in expecting something and you give them some work and maybe there's some sort of a mismatch of skills or interests. So they want to, sort of step out and teach a child, and you are giving them ki nahi yahan baith ke just clean up our databases because it's really important for us to have this database and do some analysis. But their heart is not there, right? So they will very quietly drop off or say that no, I'm not happy and I don't want to continue, whatever, right? So that is again one another thing that does it really match with what they are expecting? Sometimes planning at both the levels. Are NGOs really, ready to, sort of absorb and engage and see that, what is opened up for them? And the other is, of course, at the individual level, where if volunteers are, or potential volunteers are exploring, have they sort of thought through what they would want to do and where? Right? And of course, the implementation of sort of their work, is it recognized? Is it talked about? How do they feel that, okay, this is of value, right? So these are primary reasons in a nutshell when we also ask people, right? And we meet so many of them in different spaces. two primary reasons, and might be also relevant for you. And please write on chat what is your experience there. That when you ask someone, why have you not volunteered or donated? Two very uniform reasons, which I have seen pretty consistent over the years. And that's where maybe all of us have to work harder and smarter. First is no one asked. Second is I did not know how to begin, right? Where to find the detail or the information, right? So it's just not that they don't care. It can be a very blanket opinion we may have, but otherwise it is generally about lack of information and lack of feeling, that someone is asking me and I better respond and join. So quickly coming, and that's where, as I was saying, that I don't have some magical pill to tell you that try this out and it will work, but I can just tell you what are the ways we have discovered it for ourselves. So a simple question, and think about it, write on chat or keep your own notes, that why will a volunteer or an intern want to associate with you? With you, essentially, maybe the initiative or the organization. Sorry, I can't see you. In case someone is talking, if you can please keep yourselves on mute. Thank you so much. So just think that why usually volunteers pick up something or associate with an organization, right? Is it the issue? Is it because you work with the rights of women or rights of adolescent girls in rural areas, or an environmental issue? Yeah, right, or livelihoods, or eco-friendly agriculture? What is that issue? Do you think volunteers take interest and decide to join because the issue is very close to their heart or they're very, very passionate about? Is it the brand? Right, often when we ask a volunteer, many of them will, oh, we know cry a lot, so we are just curious and very interested to just experience it for us. What is it about it? Do you think that it may be a brand pull, that you have established yourself for a certain work where they feel a lot of joy and pride to join you just because of the brand name? Is it sheer altruism, that giving back, that I am wanting to find an opportunity where I would want to give back, and maybe I chanced upon your work and I would want to do that, whatever that issue may be. I just want to help. So today you give me teaching a child, tomorrow you give me something from the desk, the third day you ask me to research about something. I'm game because finally I realize that in some form I'm in my own capacity giving. Is it a profile rig, which is a reality nowadays a lot, where we find a lot of students writing to us and inquiring, saying that we are asked to do a summer internship, or we are asked to show so many hours of volunteering, or we have to submit a certificate of social responsibility and something like that. So can you people help? And I can put in so many weeks or months or whatever. Right? So is it that? Is it that I have free time? I'm not really sure that is it really an issue or a brand, but I have some free time. I just want to spend it maybe doing something concrete, or that I'm just on the lookout for meeting like-minded. Right. So anything, often it's a wonderful reason to get more volunteers, that someone is happy and then he or she talks about it in their circle and gets a cousin or gets two friends, and they just say that, okay, my network of people I would love to, sort of know more, is expanding in the process while I'm volunteering. Or is it mix or all of them? It need not be either, right? It's not watertight. So just see and reflect for yourself that what is the maybe the reason for you people to think, why do people join, right, as volunteers or inquire about an internship? And maybe you will find your own listing of priorities and where your majority of interest lies in. And again, there is nothing wrong or right about this, right? But being aware of the reason may be very helpful for you to strategize better as you go. So as I just said, that where do you fit in and how will you communicate? Because there is merit to each of these reasons, but what you will play up or play down depends on what you stand for and why you want to associate with them. And is your communication really sort of matching up to one of these four reasons or a mix of these reasons? One essential part of it is recruitment, right? How do you get them? So sort of, how do they join you? How do they find you? And what goes into making it? A couple of things here as suggestions is that, what is your work about? So when you're communicating, wherever you are, in written form, in a video, in a poster, right, when you're talking, when you're having a session with such interested people and explaining it, is it clear? Is it relatable? And is it credible? Because there's huge amount of value associated with it. Okay, I get it, what you are doing. Okay, I can quite relate to, the work. And I feel confident that it's not spurious. It is not something where you will doubt, the actual motive behind what this, organization is doing and why. So are you setting it very clearly and what has to go into making that? So again, go back to what sort of words you use, what sort of stories you put out, how do you talk or give a brief about your organization is very important. At times, and you have to keep revisiting. We do it often, right? That something might be dated. It was okay and fine 2 years back. But as I look at things around at the moment, I realize that certain things have to be made sharper or needs to be revised or completely overhauled. The second is what is your need? So when you're recruiting, you also, okay, this is my organization. Do you have a need for which you are looking for volunteers? And what is that need? Have you articulated enough for yourself before you're going out saying uh, that fine, this is what we are, and this is where our work is making a difference, and we are looking for people to join us, but also specifying that how they relate to the need of the organization to feel that, okay, there's something worthwhile to choose from. What is the win-win? Because of course you have to constantly keep stepping into be in your own shoes because you know your organization and requirement best. Also step into the shoes of the volunteers or potential volunteers, imagining that um, can we marry both the objectives and reasons to connect and see that are we communicating well enough to maintain where we are and what we do, but also speak the tone and things which they also want to hear and not at the cost of each other, but rather complementing each other's needs and requirements. The fourth is how easy can you make? This is again something we usually do not discuss much. I have seen it often where when I keep interacting with my concerned teams who work a lot more directly with volunteers, is that when some people say that, oh, really was Cry your first destination or did you really? They said, no, we wrote to many. You were the first to respond, right? Or we found it very easy to apply, right? So, are you making it really out there for people to find you and find that, oh, I need not then search for an email ID or find where the information is, and then I don't hear back for a long time? Then it puts people off. So, someone who might be interested at the moment and they don't find the necessary information will hop onto something unless they are really hell bent to join you because of what you stand. And are you ready for an induction? Never, sometimes it might be a very tiny work, but properly inducting and orienting them about what it is and why you need them is very important. And I will slightly detail it out in the next slide. But keep in mind that are you ready that if someone is writing back to you and saying, hey, I'm ready and just tell me more, that do you have the detail? Where do people find you? So channels of discovery is another crucial thing. One is about that what are the things as part of communication, what you're doing to set the context. The second is where will people find you, right? Are you very active in sort of literally going out in the spaces where you think you want volunteers from? Are you there in colleges? Are you there in certain hubs in the cities where you will find the type of people you're looking for? Are you tapping the online medium optimally and saying that we have a wonderful, vibrant social media space and we constantly keep talking about our work and get newer followers to know about it? Are you tapping onto mainstream media in some form through events and through ads or through op-eds and articles to talk about it more? Or that there are corporate tie-ups, and nowadays, employee volunteering and corporate volunteering is a big thing. So are you also tapping into that space where you may have corporate partners who may be donating to you, maybe not, but then are you reaching in those spaces of saying that there's something and it might interest the employees in your company, and that often leads to some wonderful outcomes as well. So what is your channels of discovery? Again, not watertight, it can be all of these, right, which you can tap or choose that what fits into your scheme the best. The other is what is the hook. So when we say, there are three things I would want to suggest. Do not take it as I am repeatedly saying, not as prescription, because to each his own, and you will understand does it work for you. But typically, that if you're communicating, keep in mind that whatever, whether you're making a video, you're turning it into a poster, or just writing a simple post or doing a cold mailing, that you need them. Now, how will they sense the need? How will they sense the urgency or the importance of what you're asking them or inviting them to do? Second is it somewhat inspiring? Not all the time it will be very inspiring. But at times, there will always be an inspiration quotient for someone to feel that, okay, that's cool. That's really something that really, inspires me to join it and do my little bit. So, is there any element in your communication which inspires them to contribute and join you and not have anything else? The third, often very relevant for young people, is being aspirational, right? That there's something they're looking up for and you're offering them that here's a credit course or here's a special volunteering which gives you an entry into honing certain skills they usually are very greedy to have, right? Or giving you an exposure to certain experts or giving you a huge social learning because you get to work in a field where to these issues you see for yourself. What is that aspiration you are responding? Because often people aspire if they find that it's too easy, they will think, "Arey, this is so easy, I can easily, sort of anyone doing, I also do." Is it something which sets it apart, right? So just try to see, are we able to weave in enough across these three things, which proves to be interesting hope for people to take more interest. I'm quickly coming back and just touching upon a few points on induction. As I said, when you're asking people to join and they write back, they apply via a form, they give you a call, and you're calling them over for a face-to-face induction or a virtual induction, whatever, whichever way things work for you. Always see that your inductions are timely, clear, and informative. Right? And three, four things here. One is that your induction gives them a proper context of what the organization is. If you directly jump into, okay, you have joined in, please help me design this poster. It is very isolated and out of the blue. They do not get a sense or the context of why their poster will be important. The moment you link it to your work and say, and hence, we are doing this work for which we are needing this. And if you are able to help us with a bit of research or making a poster, they immediately sense the importance of maybe that seemingly tiny activity, right? So, what you inform or what you talk about, and how do you talk about the organization, about their possible role? It can be many. It can be that you can start off doing this, but then there are so many other things you can, try out. So, giving them a clarity about the possible roles and responsibilities which is on offer, and how do they pick the ones which suits them the best. Explaining certain things you are guided by. So, you may have your own ways of work, right? There are certain processes, there are certain norms, there are certain subtle things which goes into making the way you work as an organization. Make it clear, right? Are there volunteering norms? Are there certain do's and don'ts about when you're interacting with the stakeholder? Or are there certain ways in which they have to, sort of show up or keep completing things, or certain values which your organization is guided by, and you think the volunteers also need to know and follow it? Make it clear right at the start, right? For example, try we have a well-defined child safeguarding policy, right? So it's just not employees of CRI, but all our volunteers, our associates, and our partners all are expected to sort of take an undertaking that they will adhere to each and every clause of the child safeguarding policy. Right? So there is nothing like, oh, it's only meant for us and we can be more flexible for them. No, right? Or if we have a POSH guidelines, it is applicable and known to everyone associated with CRI, that this is what sort of protects you or defines, your safe space. Be aware, right? So what are the things which you would want them to know? And of course, know your volunteers. So as we say that, make registration very formal, because people come and go. There should be some sort of a discipline, again, from a safeguarding point of view. You are making them, step out in the field and do something. What is the authenticity and validity and credibility of the person going there? For the volunteers to feel free to go out there and do things. Also for us to be thoroughly aware of, what sort of profile and backgrounds they come from. And also safeguarding the communities and stakeholders they are working with, so that at any point in time, you need to understand it, or, foolproof your processes, or come back with some learning to improve your processes, these know your volunteer or registration processes help you a great deal in that. Quickly, so in a nutshell, if you want to volunteer experience again is the underlying thing, and you may take a note, keep bringing in your suggestions and how you do it on the chat before we step into the Q&A, is very crucial is you onboard them, but then what sort of experience are you providing for them to feel really happy to be a part of what they are, right? So keeping them well informed about the things they are doing, about how their work is value adding to your larger work, or about what the organization is currently doing. If you have annual reports, if there are changes, if there are newer stories, how do you make sure that they are aware of all the things, right, which are necessary for them to know? They need to be felt well integrated. At times, if I have seen some volunteer who said that, okay, I'm giving you a 3 on this, and on probing, we find that they said, okay, I did my work, there was no problem as such. But I wish I got to know more about how you people really work as a team. If I would have managed to interact more with the people who are part of your organization, right? Otherwise, it wasn't like they were unhappy with the work, but they always look for that, are we well guided, are we appreciated for the things we are doing, are we challenged? So if it's a very run of the mill work, they will feel bored after some time. They will say, acha ye theek tha, like I kept doing it, but it wasn't really something which really stimulated me enough to say, wow, I did something. I was challenged to think bigger or do something I have never done, right? So always keep that in mind, that are you really sort of packing everything together to make it very wholesome for them. Definitely do not, my suggestion always is, we as Cry Again, do it a lot, is reminding ourselves never treat them as villains. They are not here for your dirty work. The moment they realize that you're dumping things which you do not like doing to them, then there is a very different way they will start perceiving how you are defining volunteering. Of course, but when you spell out the need, you can say that, but you are needed because we have so much of data, we do not have the expertise or the time. Can you just join and help us in this effort? Because that piece of work we are missing, and if you contribute one, they will do it, right? But are you explaining it in a way where they do not think that you are just sort of utilizing them without a larger, vision or objective behind what they are doing? Ways of recognition, as I said, is very important because mostly, again, if you're working a lot with youngsters, when people mature up and they are slightly elder or middle aged, they have their own sense of looking at the world and why they wish to volunteer. But increasingly in the very young stakeholder space, they want that you are duly recognized. Are you, giving certificates? Are you verbal appreciations there? Are there stories where you're talking about these volunteers in the external spaces? Are you making a special gesture to appreciate them in a group and saying that, hey, your work stood out and so nice? All right. So all those little gestures also count, big to small. Ensure that there is adequate internalization on their part about the values and priorities and mission of your organization, and to pull off a good work and show them the outcomes. So sometimes you ask them to do a certain piece of work. Hey, help me in this research, or please go out and gather some data from the field. But then we forget to tell them that what did we do with it? Right. So sometimes, even if after a month you finish off a study and you just write back to them saying, see, this is how, your work was so precious and this added up to something as big as this, they feel so, so happy. Trust me. I have seen that after 6 months we came back, that remember you had done something at that time, but now eventually we have finished it and we just wanted to tell you that how valuable it was, and they feel so touched. So take the time out to remember, to even if they have finished their stint, to go back or tell them, or even if they are with you, to tell them that, see, this is how you contributed to the bigger picture. Quickly coming to internships, I don't know how many of you run internships, but internships often is a very useful thing where uh, you have very structured program. The way in our organization we do it is that it is slightly different because we have a screening process. So there are a lot of applications every year, and we say we only take them for defined projects with tested skill sets. We have an application round, we have an interview round, and then only we take interns who work on very defined projects. This is a very popular way in which youngsters nowadays would want to come. That no, I'm looking for a social internship. right? So it's prestigious. They feel that it's more tangible and it's more defined, and it's the requirement for them often in certain courses. So you may think of that, and that also can have these building blocks. So just make sure that, are you just making sure that you have projects which are well defined for which you need interns who are there with you for a couple of weeks, and they have a start to finish sort of an idea about what this project or assignment is. And then just see how do you sort of uh, sort of design a JD and say that we are looking out for interns who can help us with these projects. So that really helps. What sort of screening criteria you will use, because they are the ones who are coming in for defined time. So are you making it very tangible and very useful for you and for them to see the value? And of course, that how do you mentor? So mentoring is a very crucial part for internships. Are you ready that who are the people in your team who are very good mentors? Because when you ask them to join and just leave it at that, then often they go back very hard. That I was given a task, but never that I was, you know, asked to sort of give presentations or given feedback on my work. I just did it and I submitted, and there was no new learn. So how are you looking at feedback and learning and appreciation letters? Often they, if standout work, there can be, recommendation letters, whether you have any resource to cover any expense which they may entail and you are ready for it. So those are crucial bits about internships which are very relevant. And as I come towards the end and take, Q&As, is there are three very important, pieces which, whether you are engaging a volunteer, a bunch of volunteers, a big number of volunteers, or interns, again, a bigger team or a few of them. Um, Three things always see that what are you doing to make them. First, how to bring them, right? As we were talking about how you talk about your organization, what is your communication, what is your induction or recruitment strategy. So, how do you bring them is the first part, right? The second is how do you make them stay? We talk of volunteer retention, right? People join, and often we see when students leave school that dropout rates are high. Okay, the enrollments are fine, but then we see that people are dropping out fast. Same here, that you may initially pull them in. What are the things which will keep them? And that's where that entire volunteering experience journey is really very precious. That what really are you constantly filling in and taking care so that they feel happy in staying, and what sort of how long would you want them to stay? Because nowadays volunteers usually do not commit to very long stints. That is again our experience, right? So when you're defining and thinking of engaging them, how would you make them stay for the time you would want them to stay with you, or they are very open to stay with you? And the third is that the larger long-term vision, that ultimately always see them as your lifelong champions. So, how are you converting them eventually into your supporters and friends? So, we have many volunteers who would have volunteered with me a decade back, and they are still wonderful friends, and they will come back and say, Anupama, this thing, I really liked seeing it. How can I contribute? Or also critique that, there's something I observed and I don't relate to it. Why are people doing it? But we know they are friends, they're concerned about what we are doing, and they are ready to sort of offer suggestions, give us leads, help us when we are looking. So, what are you doing for these three buckets? Just maybe, be very, very mindful of that, right? I have not, since I'm into the last slide, maybe we will put the poll just after these final two slides, because that there's an interesting question, and I will just conclude with that comment. But quickly, three things here. What matters? Your credibility, your genuine ask for help, right? And defining the why, right? That creating a purpose to, why your volunteer programs are there and what you would want to do. And so there's this beautiful thing which, there are wonderful quotes out there. Many of you might be using a lot of it, that volunteering is just about the do whatever you can. Even our founder would say that whatever you can do, you must do. So that has been our guiding line when we would reach out to people, that don't think you have to do grand stuff to consider yourself to be a volunteer. Wherever you are, whatever you have and whatever you can do, get started there. That's enough. I'm stopping here. I think I slightly overshot time. I will just quickly request Neelam to just show the final opinion poll. I think already many of you have taken it. In case if you not, I will just make a final remark on that, and then would be very, very happy to take questions or any afterthoughts for me to learn from.
Sure, sure, Anupama. So,
Yes. So I think just go to the third question. I think a few of you, in case you have not taken it, wonderful. But there's a World Giving Index, and nearly every year there's a report which gets published. So where does India rank? It's 119 countries who took part in the survey. Um, and there was a ranking. There's a wonderful report on it. I will invite you. I can pass on the link. In case you have not gone through it, uh, it's a good read. So you may. So a quick thing there. Okay, a lot of people just go on. Just take a chance, right? Again, there's nothing. I often struggle badly with numbers, right? So I do not have it on my tips. So nothing wrong if you. Okay, so it's a very close between. Okay, many of you are saying 104. Is it that sad? Really want it to be better, but I don't know. Just let me see what you think. Okay, so it's pretty. So 23rd, very few. So very few who are very hopeful that we score really high as a country. Lot of you are saying it's pretty close between 104 and 57. And of course, a lot of you are also saying that maybe 17th rank. Okay, great. Thanks for taking this. While you can keep playing it since a paucity of time and in the merit of time, we actually rank 57, right? So kudos to all who made that guess, whether it was informed or a wild shot in the dark, but great. But it is difficult to imagine. There are three criteria about, what went into the making of that score, right? Three things were asked when people were surveyed in the country, right? In the recent months, did you help a stranger? That was the first criteria. Second was, did you donate? Third was, did you volunteer with an organization? So that those three simple asks were tabulated into putting the score. And that's where India comes on 57. There are wonderful. There Indonesia scores first, right? So there are a couple of countries in Africa which score really, really high in the World Giving Index. And trust me, it's very. So I will stop the poll here. And the quick point before I take questions and we come into the conclusion is, um, we often are bound by that maybe a developed country always scores really high, but altruism and giving back and sharing and showing concern for others, African countries have really done well. A country like Indonesia has done well, and India is just about not that good. As you say, it's somewhere definitely not in the top 20, and of course, after 50th. But on volunteering, we do better. On volunteering, recently having volunteered with an organization, we stand in 18th rank, if I remember it correctly, right? But I say this as I conclude is it's a huge ground to cover, and the country is waiting for people to come forward and do their bits, and for all of you out here to just see that what works for you and why. Because ultimately, a caring society and giving society, there cannot be any alternative, right? We can talk of development growth in terms of GDP, but that's only one tip of how you look at a country's well-being, right? So volunteering hugely makes a difference. Um, Thank you so much for your patience because I overshot time by a while. But Neelam and others, you can unmute yourself and ask. And if I'm missing anything on chat where I can quickly answer, I would love to. Uh,
yeah, not at all, Anupama. That was really, really insightful, the session and the insights we have gathered. I mean, I can say as a volunteering platform, the ConnectFor, we have been working since like 8 years, but still there are a lot of things even I got to know, and definitely I'll share with my team as well. Yeah.
yes.
So, yeah. So,
I think job description, maybe someone was asking what is a JD.
yes.
JD is a job description, which essentially is that you make it very clear that I am looking for a volunteer to help design. I am looking for a design volunteer. What perhaps are your roles and responsibilities? So you define the assignment and you tell what sort of roles and responsibilities are likely a part of it. And then you say what sort of skill sets you're looking for. That someone with a flair in, Photoshop or Canva or whatever, right? So that if tomorrow someone is looking at your JD, they get a fair sense of that, okay, I get it in a nutshell that whether I fit the bill, what sort of timeline. So make it as specific rather than just an inspirational statement that we are looking for volunteers, because it might not give them a adequate clarity on exactly what and how. So you can try it out. It works much, much better for internships. Even for certain volunteering profiles, many people nowadays appreciate that. Can you give us the specifics? So they might say specifics or they might say it's a JD. Uh, but yeah, that is something which, not that we always do it. We often do not do it. At times, depending on the need, we put it as well. Yes, Swapna, please.
Absolutely. So, yeah, Swapna wants to ask something.
Hi, Anupama. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, Swapna.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. I think I was able to learn many new things from what you had shared. I have a couple of questions. Should I go one by one?
Yeah, please, Swapna.
Yeah, so my first question is that, I'm really, happy that CRY as an organization has a dedicated that can handle and manage volunteers. But when it comes to smaller organizations who do not have a team for volunteers, but it's just say, someone handling operations or admin or communications, who has to additionally take up the responsibility of managing volunteers as well. Then, do you have any tips for that? And especially when it comes to induction, do you generally do it in groups, or do you do it one by one in case you have the manpower for that? I mean, that would be great, connecting with volunteers on a one-on-one. But when it comes to our scenario, it's really hard to do it on a one-on-one basis because we are spending a lot of time in inducting the persons, and then maybe they are not able to keep up the commitment, or something comes their way and then they're gone a week or maybe a little more. So there is actually a lot of time that goes into it and no outcome. So yeah, that's my first question.
Right. So, Apna, very, very valid point. And I do recall when I was working in the first organization, when I joined this sector, we were small and, we would have a couple of volunteers join in. And as you said, it's very difficult to juggle, your main work along with saying that, okay, I'm also working with 10 more volunteers, right? So map and assess your needs as an organization. So do we really, as I was saying, that do we really need volunteers? Why and when? Rather than getting obsessed with saying that, okay, let's open it up and then we struggle to manage them, assess the need and where is the opportunity, because volunteers do not look at their benefit as a short term thing but also as a long term benefit, because as I said, they become your champions for your organization. So
Hello,
make an
some disturb
assessment
is
is the
coming.
first suggestion which I would want, that maybe it's good that um, you know um, you can assess and see that would we want to work at a time with 10 people, 50 people, 100 people, right? Do we phase it out that maybe every uh, month we will put up our requirement and get certain volunteers? Who are the people in my organization who are ready to volunteer? Because it does require a bit of time. You may sort of budget time for it, that how much can we give, because it cannot be a dedicated time, maybe once a week, 1 hour, that we can guide them and tell them about the work. The other part of that, inductions, which again is very crucial. Again, optimally plan your inductions. For us as CRY, we do it once a month, where we either call them in office and invite them over, or that we say come in for a virtual session. Often people will say in a city like Mumbai, they will say, oh, I have to travel a lot and is it worth it? We will say, okay, we find a convenient time, whether it's a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday morning, and we will say, join us for a virtual session. And we call all the volunteers who were inquiring in that month to say that please join us, because it's difficult for us to attend to one-on-one while we would have loved to do, right? So make that very clear. Or you can have virtual inductions. We often are also taking that route where we are making a standard virtual induction model, which has a one of you might be wonderful in speaking about the organization and why we need volunteers. Make a little standard video guide and then just say, please go through it to understand, and then maybe attach your current openings and say, please apply for the role you think. So that also gives them a fair sense of the organization, why you're looking for them. So it's interesting and it's bite sized. So you can try that route as well, not to sort of end up saying that, oh, we spend so much of time and then many vanish, which is a reality. Even we face it, right? So maybe in that way, you can plan your resource and dedicate time, Swapna. And of course, mentoring and guidance, that readiness in the organization has to be. That are you really ready to sort of give that bit of time, whether it's that 1 hour or half an hour or more intensively, is something every organization will. I hope that answers you, Swapna.
Sure, Anupama, it does. It does. I have noted down everything you said. I'll just quickly move to the next few
Right.
questions. I hope I don't take up a lot of
Right.
time. So my next question is, do you have a screening procedure for your volunteers as well? I know you said that for interns. But sometimes we have projects which are designed for volunteers and we do require some skills. So what happens is we do induct them based on their resume or their past work experience. That's already a bit of a screening, right? And somehow a few of them do not deliver as much as we expect them to. And then both of us, it's a very awkward situation. We don't know how to proceed further with them because we were looking for certain skills and they were not able to provide that. And for them, I'm sure they felt a little dejected and or not so enthusiastic as how they were earlier. Maybe adding to that, I'll just have my last question as well, and maybe you can answer that later. That is from crime. Are there any tips that you can give us about retaining volunteers in addition to say the certificates of volunteering that they give, that an organization can give, and maybe social media posts about their contribution? Is there anything else that you think is key to retain volunteers? In an organization. And another one to that is that you also have a minimum requirement, as in a volunteer should complete at least this many hours of work for them to do what is like. Do you have that?
Right. I hope, Swapna, I can remember all the questions, or otherwise, I think, Neelam, if you people have a lot of questions, like any time in the feedback form, anything I can answer later, I would love to. But please go ahead. I think final 5 minutes. So quickly coming back, Swapna, I think that skill match and interest match is always, it will never be foolproof, right? So you have to somewhere take a bit of chance, but also have your systems in place. When we register our volunteers, there are certain clear things we ask. All right, so that we are sure about what sort of skill sets you are committing to, what sort of time you are ready for, right? A background check, so you have to upload a recommendation letter, right? Because we work with children. If you are opting for a on-ground volunteering, there are certain checks we put in place, right? That there is a photo ID proof. If you are an under 18 volunteer, is there a parental consent attached, right? So that we can go back and check that are those valid for us to open up something for it. Right. And then we say that, this program requires, if you are saying today, in Delhi, we work in Dwarka. So in Dwarka, are you ready? Do you stay close by? This program requires every Saturday 2 hours. Are you ready to give that? Right. Are you ready to come in for the planning meetings? And so we somewhat sense how ready they are and how active they are. And there are core groups. So whenever there are team activities, we form core groups, core leadership teams within the volunteers who then own up. So it's not always me and my team who are sort of managing them, but there are wonderful peer leaders in the teams who actually do it with a lot of responsibility. That are we all working as a team? Who's inactive? Who's active? How do we give feedback? How do we keep mapping them? Right? Because I think someone was asking about volunteering hours, whether it's for the kindness jam or even we map it. Right? Every year, like, when we map on a very modest scale, we say that we generate around 20 lakh plus volunteering hours through our volunteers. We make it very clear, and of course, every organization you will have your own ways, but how do you sort of see that how long do you need your volunteers? Earlier, we would say you have to give minimum of 3 to 6 months. 10 years back, we would never be open for anyone who's opting below 1 year. Short-term volunteering, are you looking for a community volunteering, are never bite-sized. So if you're saying that I would want to directly work with children, we will say you have to give minimum of 3 to 6 months. Because if you're working in a community, you cannot be tokenistic, right? You cannot say, I just go, I will teach guitar and I come back and I feel very happy about it and post a picture, right? Because that's not how change comes, right? But if you're saying that, okay, I'm there, I can give 1 month or I can give you 2 weekends. Is there anything quick I can help you with? Of course you can. There can be a lot of work where those couple of hours, 10 hours or 2 weekends can be very precious, whether online or on ground. Come and help us organize an event for which we need you for Saturday, Sunday, right? And they come in. So that requirement that this is, let us not be very rigid is what my learning is. That let us not put them at the altar that it has to be perfect and be in the ulterior spirit, because it has to be always a fine combination of inspiration and tangibility, and also being a bit transaction. So I think find your own mix and define it for yours. There are no goods and bads or the right way to go about and not about. But ultimately, always remember that I think many of you were talking of the monetary value is volunteering can never be paid. Then it defeats the entire spirit or notion of volunteering. Right? You can say we can cover incidentals, that we are traveling a lot in the field to cover. A youngster who's not earning will feel the pinch, right? And you think we can cover your travel cost to the field and coming back. Those are different, right? But if you're saying no, you will be given a stipend for your volunteering, then I don't know. Then the motivation to volunteer is very different from what we actually say as giving back or discovering or learning or doing something. Right? So I think try to find your own answer, because it will never be a black hole.
Absolutely, absolutely. Totally agree, Anupama. Let's take this last question. And any further questions if we have, you can just feel. I've shared the link of the feedback form. You can put the question, and I guess Anupama will be happy to answer those offline, and I'll share those answers with you. Right? So,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I think because it's sorry that these discussions often we keep having it every week with some or the other group. So feel free to stay in touch. Whether via Neelam you would want to share more questions, I can answer better. I will be very happy to do that. If at any time one-on-one for your organization you would want to sit and just chat, and I can get to know about your work, and if any further help or ideation, please do write to me, or connect on social media. I'm very bad on social media except LinkedIn. But in case there's something where I get to know more about you, please feel free to do that. But thanks so much, Neelam and ConnectFor. I think it's a lovely platform, and I hope next time I get to know more about from all of you than me saying, because then we can find our sweet spot of making things work on board.
Definitely, definitely. Thanks to you, Anupama, for the time and for the amazing the session and the insights you have shared. And I guess everyone will agree with me that was really informational, and many things we learned through it: how to manage volunteers, how to uh, keep volunteers, how to approach. So many things are there. Yes, definitely. And I would like to thank all of you for joining on a weekday for an hour, for an hour or 1.5 hours. That is really great to know all of you here. That's what it inspire us to keep these webinars, for all of you, where we can share the knowledge and the experience with each other and get some benefit out of each other. Yeah. So I have shared the feedback form link. I will also email to you all the details. I mean, the recording will be available within 7 to 10 working days on our YouTube channel. I will share the link to you. And yes, any other queries, I will just put down our email ID. Someone has asked about the email ID where they can ask the queries. So I will do that also. Anything, if you want to know, you can always reach out to us. You can go on connectfor.org, and you will find our contact details and email IDs over there. Yeah. So once again, thank you, Anupama, for your time. Thank you, participants.
Entirely my pleasure, and all the very best to each one of you with all the good work you already are doing. Wishing you all the success with it.